Hello, this is D, and I'm back with another video. And today I have a whole lot of ABK news. Now, a lot of information is breaking at the moment. Now, today is actually my birthday, but this news is so big that I just had to come out and cover it. So I kind of stopped the celebrations a little bit short just so I could get this video out to you guys. Now, first off, the FTC, they are going to court. They're trying to get a preliminary injunction against Microsoft to stop them from finalizing the deal. As well, we had some court proceedings today in the CMA Microsoft case, and both of these sides were arguing on what was going to be admissible in the courts. Also, I want to get us up to speed on some of the things that we've missed since my last video. So let's first start off with what we've missed. Microsoft President Brad Smith met with British Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt for talks in London last Tuesday, and a government source kind of revealed this. They didn't give any details. Now, like usual, I'll leave a link in the description down below so you guys can check it out for yourself. This is coming from Reuters.com, and I gotta say, it's kind of futile at this point. Like, I do understand his frustration, and I understand the Chancellor's frustration, but ultimately the decision lies with the CMA, and this is in court, and the CMA and Microsoft, they are far apart. There's not going to be any type of deal that is brokered. They're in front of the courts, and it's just going to play out the way that it is. And, you know, it's sad because honestly, I do believe that the CMA's reasons for blocking this acquisition, it's just flawed. Their numbers are flawed, and they're going to lose in court, and they're wasting the court's time. They're wasting Microsoft's time. This is hurting the UK. It's not good for business. It's just not a good look. Now, in court today, they actually had a proceeding, and I watched this case, and I gotta say, Microsoft lawyers, they seem extremely confident. I don't want to say that the CMA lawyers don't seem as confident. Just the arguments that came from Microsoft's side, they were very sound, and I think they got a really good outcome today. So let's first get into this. Now, this is coming from Florian Mueller. You know who he is already on the channel, and like usual, I'll leave a link in the description down below so you guys can check it out for yourself. The CAT Tribunal's president, Mr. Justice Marcus Smith, has started the court session. He's now reminding everyone of restrictions concerning the live stream. Now, I did see this go up on the screen. It was saying that if you record the live stream, it is against the law. So nobody's going to be able to record it and rebroadcast that. It is there for the public's interest, so you are able to watch it, and I did watch it in its entirety, and it was pretty fascinating to see it in action. But once again, if you did record this, you better erase it. It's illegal, and definitely don't rebroadcast it. Anyways, all three members of CAT panel are here. The last time the president was alone. Microsoft counsel obviously wants everyone to respect the rules regarding streaming. Microsoft inquired about the hearing date, and they would like to start the hearing on Friday, July 28th. Microsoft mentions again the 26 meetings between the FTC and CMA during phase 2 investigation, which is a very high number. So they argued this, and it is a high number that the FTC and CMA met 26 times. And, you know, the courts are aware of this. So that was pretty interesting to see that they actually mentioned that, and that it is a high number, just the way that they stated it. Now, talking about the expert reports, Microsoft originally planned to submit. Now, this is where the big argument of the day was. Now, the CMA, they don't want these financial, I believe it's a financial advisor or somebody that's involved with economics. They don't want his testimony and his findings to be admitted to the court. Their excuse was credentials, or he hasn't revealed if he advised Microsoft on how to go about finalizing this deal, something to that effect. Anyways, that was the big argument of the day. Now, Mr. Justice Smith reported by the professors of the US law regarding Microsoft's 10-year cloud streaming contracts, more of a distraction than an assistance. The court apparently believes it can be from its opinion based on the decision. CAT conflicted about reports from Professor Fiona Scott Morton and Christina Cafera. Economic expert evidence would be interesting in a way, but the court would be able to rely on it for a limited extent. Misinterpretation in the market shares mentioned by Microsoft counsel. Economic expert report would also explain that part, not anticipating that the judgment would depend solely on that material contained in those reports. That said, Microsoft says the reports are not legally irrelevant. Microsoft's counsel explains that the review standard, which gives the CMA and other government agencies wide latitude, makes their rulings hard to appeal. It's developing, and that's why the admission of expert evidence may also be justified in this case. One of Microsoft's experts reports that they're asking the court to explain, among other things, the extent to which gamers just use xCloud to try new games before downloading them if they like them. That's something that has also been discussed on Twitter. Microsoft counsel still talking about expert evidence that they'd like to submit. Explains CMA lumped in two separate types of services in its cloud gaming definition. Now, it's a long read, so I'll kind of just go through it on the screen so you guys can see it for yourself. But basically, Microsoft argued that they want to use this expert's testimony and information to show how they came to their numbers adding Game Pass users to the cloud users, how it was mistaken, and of course, just to prove their case. Now, let's get a little bit of the CMA's part in. Now, the CMA lawyer, William Casey, now speaking, says the expert advice is only admitted exceptionally in this type of appeal. CMA argues that the question for the court is whether finding about the CMA is irrational, and it makes no sense that the court and this one economic expert needs to export reports to help it reach that kind of conclusion. So they're really trying not to get this evidence put into play because they know it destroys their whole narrative. It destroys their reason for blocking this deal because it proves that Game Pass members don't all necessarily use cloud gaming. In fact, cloud gaming is only 1 to 5% of the market. And this economic expert is going to prove that. Now, let's just cut to the chase. The judge came back from the break and he said that Microsoft will be able to present the evidence. They'll have to do it in a timely manner. And if the CMA has any type of questions, they have to answer them immediately. Now, the court also said that if it finds that the judgment, that the evidence is not admissible in court, that Microsoft would have to reimburse the CMA for the cost of paying for experts to respond. So the evidence will be presented. It's just going to have to be relevant to what they're arguing in courts. And of course, we know it will be relevant. So this wasn't a good day for the CMA. And I'll be honest with you, they didn't look terrible, but they just looked outclassed. I'm just being honest. Just from watching the case myself, they just didn't look as prepared as Microsoft's lawyers. So this is also another great thing for the case. Now let's get to the breaking news. This is why I know all of you guys tuned in today. The FTC is going to court and they're going to challenge Microsoft's deal. They're going to file for a preliminary injunction to block the deal to prevent Microsoft from finalizing this deal and putting it through. Now, also from the last time I did a video, information has been circulating that Microsoft is really looking just to close this deal. And they could do so. They could still close this deal and deal with the court case that they're in the UK for right now and just get it through. And as you guys know, the FTC would have to file a preliminary injunction blocking the deal, preventing Microsoft from closing it. Now, in a US court, they have to prove it. They have to prove that this is going to cause some type of harm to gamers, to the market, that it's unfair. They have to prove it. It's not just hearsay. They have to find the hard evidence, and that's going to be really hard to do in a market that does not yet exist. Cloud gaming represents 1 to 5% of gamers. That's not a lot of gamers. So they're going to have a very hard time to prove it. So I actually think this is a good thing because I think there's a high likelihood that the preliminary injunction will not be granted because their grounds are weak. They're very weak, and they're so weak that they only filed this in California. Now, there's another central district where Activision is headquartered at, and that's a northern court, and the judge there, Jacqueline Scott Corley, I probably said her name wrong, is already familiar with the merger because of the private lawsuit. Now, on a previous video, I talked about some gamers and they got their lawsuit thrown out. They tried to get a preliminary injunction to block the deal and it was thrown out. So this judge is familiar with the case. So the FTC said, no way, we're not going to file our case there. Let's go up to California. So that shows you how desperate they are. And I really feel their grounds are extremely weak. Now let's look at the official feed here from Florian. And he goes on to say that the FTC's new complaint in the Northern District of California deserves to be thrown out, but it's unacceptable that some insult, so I'm not going to say her name. So if people are insulting her, listen, you got to have class here. You got to let things play out. You can't get on Twitter and swear at her and say all kinds of things to her. It just doesn't make sense. Let this play out in court. Microsoft has the best lawyers out there, and we all know that the case is weak. So it's unacceptable to have personal attacks against her. Anyways, he goes, let's disagree with her stance on this merger in a civil and respectful manner. Also, I'm not going to read the rest. Now, Brad Smith goes on to say that today's action by the FTC to file suit in our Activision case in federal court should accelerate the decision-making process, and this benefits everyone. He says, I'm looking forward to working with the government. I have all the confidence in our case and look forward to presenting it. So Brad Smith is excited for this, and I have to agree with you because once this preliminary injunction gets thrown out, there is nothing stopping Microsoft from closing the deal. So at the very worst, like the worst case scenario is that these games are not going to be playable in the UK. Not all of Microsoft's games. The games that are in there prior to the ABK merger, those games will be fine. But once it gets finalized, all the games that come from Activision, they wouldn't be allowed in the UK until either they win the appeal and the CMA overturns it, or they work some type of deal. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do it. Now, they have lawyers working on other ways around this, like I've said in previous videos, by having a business run in a country that is not under the jurisdiction of the CMA and using a distributor to bring the games into the UK. And of course, there's other ways that UK residents could get around it, like using a VPN, and they would obviously have access to these games like the rest of the gamers in the world. So right now, it's kind of go time. This is the moment. Now, I was expecting this to be resolved in August, but the way that things are kind of moving at such a fast pace, I think we might know by the end of June. It's quite possible because if they defeat the CMA, the FTC, and they're able to finalize the deal, they're just going to go ahead and do this deal because they don't want to have to worry about paying that $3 or $4 billion if they go past the due date. That would be the move to make. And then just deal with the CMA stuff in court. You know, the rest is history. So it's very interesting. Anyways, I wonder what you guys think about all this. We got a lot of news today. We saw that the CMA was fumbling the bag in court, that they were trying to stop Microsoft from presenting an economist that will prove their case. And the reasons for him not to appear, it just didn't make sense. And I think the ruling was very fair from the judge. He said basically they can present the evidence as long as it's relevant to the point that they're trying to make. And I think that's all they could ask for. So CMA basically lost in court today. Now we're expecting this big battle with the FTC and them finalizing this deal. And I got to say to you guys, it's really telling when they don't go to the court that has a judge that's already familiar with the case. They go to another court that possibly has a judge that knows nothing about this case. Anyways, it's going to be very interesting. So I'm going to keep you guys posted on all the updates. Stay tuned on the channel for more news regarding this ABK merger. I hope the next video that I give to you guys is that Microsoft has finalized the deal and that the FTC has lost their bid to get a preliminary injunction. Anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And like I usually say, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys on the next one.